Welcome to Seeking the Sacred Self. I'm your host, Naomi Rozak. I'm really excited about today's episode because we're going to do an immersive inner journey to learn about the emotional and spiritual root of your physical symptoms. So just note that you can set yourself up well for this journey by listening to last week's podcast, which explains that pain is best viewed as a friend or a messenger to us, trying to tell us what's hard for our bodies and what has been hard for a long time. If we try to judge it, fix it, force it, or get rid of it, we are not really working with any emotional causes, and we're shutting down the way our body speaks to us. A better approach is to invite thoughtfulness around your symptoms, and I'll be sharing some reflective questions for you to ask yourself to begin that process in a moment. I also want to share that if becoming aware of what's going on inside is new for you, I'd suggest also listening to episode 14, How to Hear Your Inner Voice, part 2, as it shares how the body speaks to us in depth. And I'll briefly review that in today's episode as well. Just note that as you're working with physical symptoms, this is holistic work. It's not just emotional or just spiritual, and it's not just physical. So as you are going for physical work to support whatever's happening with your body, also be looking at the emotional and spiritual state. Bring them both together. And here are some of those reflective questions we can ask. You can just do a quick mental assessment as you bring your awareness to different body parts, how you're holding them, and ask yourself, number one, where is the tension? Just notice where in your body. And then ask yourself, number two, what seems to aggravate the tension, make it worse? What physically aggravates it? And also, what life circumstances or events or stressors seem to aggravate it? Does the headache show up every time your mother comes to visit, as an example? Number three, what does having this pain condition or this symptom relieve or free you of? How does being ill or sick benefit you? Sometimes we desperately need time off work, but we won't actually apply for it. And then our body comes up with an illness big enough that we have to take the time off work, which is what we really needed anyway. So, is there some duty, some obligation, some painful responsibility or relationship that you've known needed to be dealt with, but you just couldn't do it? And does your physical pain help you get that thing or get to where you actually wanted to go? Do you have a better quality of life by being sick or in pain than you did when you were not in as much pain and more quote unquote productive? Question 4 to ask yourself is, what does having this symptom distract you from? A physical symptom can be a helper so that you don't have to feel the painful thing, or it can be a messenger so that you do feel the painful thing. The body is always speaking and sometimes compensating for us. It often knows when we can't lay down our stressors, and so it just keeps going until a point where either the stress relieves and then the body goes crazy, or we can't carry it anymore and the body's like, okay, that's enough. I'm going to take charge here. So it's trying to be a good companion, operating with our best interest at heart. Number 5, what is your pattern of being and behavior in the world? Are you a people pleaser? Do you worry more about how people perceive you or how they feel about you than how you feel about yourself? Are you a caregiver, taking care of everyone else, but not yourself? Are you putting up with treatment from others that is creating pain in your physical or emotional body? Do you feel powerless, always on the defense, never safe? Do you have to always be right or control all the details? And are you exhausted of this pattern? Is it time for change? The 6th question you can ask yourself is, when did the physical symptoms start? What happened in the few minutes or hours before you noticed it, especially if it's an acute, momentary symptom? or if it's longer term or a chronic condition. What happened in the weeks, months, and up to a couple of years before it was triggered? Sometimes there's an event that doesn't get fully processed, and it takes a while for the physical effects to build. But if we think about it, we can point back to what triggered this energy of pain in our body, the stress that caused it. I'm also going to link a video from Summer Bozahora, who taught me this perspective in mind-body medicine. Her whole channel is actually about intuitive healing of physical pain, but emotional and spiritual pain, soul pain, if you will. And it has some very helpful questions and information to help you gain more perspective. So look for that link below. Before we go further, let's just quickly address a couple of perspectives that prevent us from viewing symptoms holistically. First of all, unless our pain is really affecting us, if it's not a major symptom, we might not even notice it at all. So we need to grow our awareness to notice even subtle appearances of pain in our body, because maybe what we're experiencing is not huge enough that our body's like, oh my gosh, I have to completely take over. But we can still be subtly affected by people around us and minor things we're doing. And so growing awareness can only be helpful. Secondly, what can be hard is that we have prevailing cultural beliefs that help us excuse pain as only having physical causes, especially with smaller aches and pains, which cause us to discount a messenger that might be trying to talk to us. Like with me, a little shoulder tightness just seems like not a big deal, especially if we can point to a circumstance that aggravated it. Like when I fell on the icy stairs in minus 35 degrees Celsius weather trying to plug my car's engine heater in so it wouldn't freeze overnight, and I fell onto my extended arms and ribs and couldn't move my shoulder for many months. We might just think, oh, that's the cause of my shoulder, but it's also my shoulder that freezes up when I worry about what people think if I move back into people-pleasing patterns, which affected me for much of my life. We also may think a headache is simply a lack of drinking water, or a bad night's sleep, or a little tension. But where did the tension come from? Why did we sleep badly? How were we distracted from a state of thirst in our body? And I don't want to put too much emphasis on the physical causes here, because if we're not careful, we'll either get too caught up in the physical cause, or we'll write off the symptom completely, when the body's mechanism for pain is a bit more like, how can I amp up communication so she'll notice? I know, I'll put some pain there. It might take advantage of something that happened to be able to try to get your attention. And then one more thing I need to address is the available information about emotional and spiritual causes of pain. There are lots of schools of thought about mind-body connection and mind-body medicine and how we heal. There's a lot of science out there and a lot of spirituality stuff. And for myself, I try to stay very grounded and practical and individual in my approach. One danger of having so much information is that when pioneers in the field have determined, oh, this body part relates to this certain emotional pattern or belief, of course, that's really helpful. But in real mind-body connection, we have to be aware of the subtleties of our own unique circumstances and feelings and how we interpret life. We have to be able to go inside ourselves and find out what our truth is and the nuances of it, or the info might not be very helpful. It can also keep us in our thinking, assessing, analytical, sometimes judging mind, instead of down in the body, feeling and receiving the inner language of the whole self. So any information like that we find can be informative, but shouldn't be taken as absolute truth, just a starting place. And what you'd want to look for instead is, how does this information resonate with how I feel inside? If it resonates, it's true for you on some level. If it doesn't, let that go. Beware, you might have a wall up where you don't really want to accept something that might be true. But if you're approaching this earnestly with the true desire to understand and to be able to support yourself, you would know if this information is related to you, and the process we'll do later will help you determine how true something is or isn't for you. And the same thing for something that says, for example, oh, cancer is related to fear of death or unforgiveness or bitterness. That may be for some people, but it's very restricting. It's defining when maybe it's not true for you. So for others, it might be more about where the cancer is located in your body or when it became symptomatic or was diagnosed, what was going on around that time or how long had you been caught in a certain pattern or stressor, for example. And the practical side of me also says we can't fail to look at lifestyle and genes and things like that because the mind body system is a complex interplay of outer reality and physical world and emotional, energetic, spiritual world inside. I'm going to share now about how I would work with a physical symptom and then go into a story of what has been happening with me. So first, I would take note of where in my body the physical symptom is. And I would note what the body part is functional for in a very simple way. Simplicity can't be overstated here. Don't go into a biology textbook and figure out, oh, the electrolytes, and it doesn't have to be that fancy. We're looking for simplicity. We want to look at how metaphorically we also look at that body part. So when we think of the heart, not only does it physically keep the circulatory system going and it's vital to life and it's a pump, but there's also the emotional heart. It represents love, it feels, it can break. And in the energetic world, there's also like the feel and the sound of it. So the heart has a rhythm, it echoes, it's a wave as well when we read it. And so you can think of the body part or the organ or whatever on all these levels: physical, metaphorical, how is it used in our language, and then any other aspects that just occur to you very easily. So I think of all that. If it's my spine that's hurting, I think, well, the spine holds the back straight. It's the backbone. And so I'd wonder, is there somewhere I don't have a backbone where I'm not standing up for myself? Is there somewhere where I don't feel strong or like I have my personal power in my life? Am I carrying something that has me feeling weak or bent or bowed over? So if we look at the lungs give us the breath of life. And sometimes when we're in danger, we can't breathe, or we can't get an emotional breath when someone is not giving us space. And so I'd ask, what is causing me to feel like I can't breathe? Then I would also go to my computer and do a quick Google for spiritual meaning of whatever that body part is, or spiritual symbolism of this body part. And I might Google what it physically does if I'm not really aware. From those things, I should come up with enough information to begin working with it. And I'd sit with a blank page and pen or drawing pencils, and I'd write down those things I'd learned, and I'd write down every feeling I've also had about that symptom. I might even draw a picture of that body part and represent through colors and lines what the pain of it's like to me, what the feelings I associate with it are. My current physical symptom is that I've been rolling or slightly spraining my left ankle outward a lot since March. So I have some background knowledge that I can start to look at through my experience. I know that the left side of the body has to do with our mother, it has to do with nurturing. It is the intuitive and creative, energetic side of the body. And then what I looked up, the ankle is also about stability and flexibility. Our whole body rests in it, and it needs to be flexible to respond to uneven ground. And so when I have a symptom there, what I'm feeling is instability and inflexibility. My ankle is not moving the way it's supposed to. It's part of the body that helps us connect to the earth. And then the legs are what move us around and move us forward in life. I also know that the last time I rolled it, which was the third time in 1 week and was about 3 weeks ago, I felt this huge wave of frustration and pain come over me. It felt like I couldn't walk at all. And I was so frustrated that this thing was just going on and on and on. And no matter what I did, it wasn't getting better. It felt like my ankle was going to prevent me from exercise and prevent me from feeling good. And I was just beyond frustrated. The interesting thing is in that moment, I also noted that the frustration felt like it had already been in my body, and the ankle just gave me an outlet to feel it. So that's interesting and that's significant. So in my thinking mind, when I put the pieces together, I could see that this started in March, which is when I started to be more vulnerable in this podcast and share more personally about my journey of leaving church. At that time, I was afraid of showing my true self and then being punished for it. So I've been struggling with a fear of the unknown, a fear of the future. Then I came across another modality that I really wanted to study, but it made me question my future path. Like, was I doing the right thing with this podcast and career direction? And if I trained in this new thing, does it mean that where I thought I was going isn't right? And so I've been questioning myself a lot of self doubt. And so, between these questions about my path and the fear and vulnerability that was already there, that I had to do some healing work on, I've been questioning myself a lot, just feeling unstable, feeling self doubt. And I felt frustration at not being able to see clearly, not knowing how to move ahead, not being able to see far down the road. Sometimes afraid to even start on writing for this podcast. There's just this fear in my body that has kept me feeling stuck. And then what I do, of course, is go back to the chiropractor and work on walking more carefully and stretching out those muscles and wearing an ankle brace. And it wasn't until that week of rolling my ankle a few times that I thought, I wonder if my ankle is trying to tell me something else. Where do I feel like I can't walk? I literally can't walk. And so looking at the physical meaning, the need for flexibility, stability or inflexibility and instability, and how this body part is meant to move me forward in life, and then the frustration I've been feeling, I decided to move into an immersive process using that as a starting point. And the first thing I noticed as I immersed in my inner world was a feeling of frustration, almost like a solid wall of it, completely down the left side of my body. And I immediately just started crying with kind of like the feeling of frustration. It was so big. But as soon as I started to really honor that feeling and feel it, I started to feel this kind of electric, good energy in my left ankle at the same time. So clearly, these two were related. I wasn't imagining it. In that moment, I could deeply feel and know in the inner world how frustrated and stuck I have felt. I could feel how at every turn I was refusing to move forward. And I was literally creating my own stuckness because I wasn't trusting what I already knew, which is just keep podcasting, keep going. Like, I really haven't felt that I need to change my path for any reason. I just got a little bit tangled up in my own perception of what I need to do. And so the lack of trust that the future would turn out well and that everything was fine just as it was now was what was at the root. I was refusing to move forward because of the feelings I was having, because of the fear and the worry about the future. And as I was in this immersive process, I just suddenly started to get really sleepy. And so I took a nap and woke up feeling great on all fronts. And I haven't twisted my ankle since. When it was happening, at the end, it was happening on every dog walk I took. And I also feel really peaceful about the future in my body right now. So, my symptom in a nutshell is that I've been trying to control my future, needing to know before being willing to take steps forward. That's a bit of a control issue, right? And my ankle is telling me that this inflexible and fearful view is causing me trouble in my physical, emotional, spiritual self. My rigidity is causing the body to struggle. So once we have the truth of our symptom, the knowledge of it, the next step is to accept and trust that intuitive knowledge and allow it to help you make changes. I am moving back into more trust of the future and reminding myself to stay in the moment and do the action that the moment calls for, not having to have the whole future figured out. Keep taking the steps my intuition already told me to take until it shows me to do something different. And I'm learning to tap more into my soul connection and its power and step out of the feeling of fear. I'm actively working with that rather than staying stuck and frustrated. So, any truth that comes up for you, you may feel a shift in your body and your understanding immediately. It's also likely that you'll need to keep practicing the changes that the truth requires for it to take complete effect and for the symptom to not come back. And after you've shifted the internal emotional energy behind the symptom, it's a good time to bring in any support to help the physical part of the symptom heal. For example, I'm still doing some ankle stretching and massaging when I notice it. It's not a big deal now because I know the ankle is going to heal because I've changed the pattern that was causing the instability and inflexibility. But I was doing the stretching and massaging before, and I was also wearing a brace, and it wasn't making a difference. And now I don't feel the need for the brace because my ankle feels different. On its own, it feels both stable and able to flex at the same time. A couple of times it has felt close to rolling under me, and somehow it adapts and doesn't roll completely. So clearly, it's not perfect yet. It's not like immediately there are no after effects. It is working through the healing after, now that I've changed the energetic pattern that didn't allow it to get better. Now we're going to move into guiding this immersive experience for you. Notice that this is best done after you've gone through the questions I gave above and done that little bit of Googling or thinking to see what things automatically come to you. This activates our curiosity and gets us in the mode of knowing something might be behind the symptom. It's like the preparatory step. We also want to review that inner world information occurs in many ways, such as inner images, like the kind you'd see in your imagination, except that in this journey, you're not trying to imagine anything, it will just naturally come up on its own. You will also feel emotions or physical sensations. Or you may smell something that's not physically there, but in your inner world, you can smell it. You can also taste or hear, whether that's perceived words or noises or external noises that stand out to you and come into your inner awareness. Or you may have a gut sense of something or knowledge, just like a hit of knowing that comes to you, that is just there all of a sudden. All of these are part of the inner energetic language of the body and soul, the language your sacred self communicates to you in. And know that you may not experience all of those different types of language. We are usually stronger in sensing certain ones, and whatever your strengths are how your body will speak to you the most naturally. And then just a little guidance on your state of mind and what you can do when you're in this process. For whatever comes up for you, the wisest thing to do if you don't know what else to do in that moment is simply to keep breathing. Allow your body to take deep breaths, even if something feels uncertain or close to overwhelming, and keep watching or observing. As you observe, without judging what you see, feel, or know, the information will shift and change and will give you more insight. Just keep breathing, keep observing. You can interact with that information. You can try different playful interactions or experiments to see what might happen. You can have a conversation with however this information appears to you, as long as you're treating it like a friend that's here to help you, something that you want to befriend, rather than something you are trying to force or fix or get out of your life. So just like with a friend, you can ask curious questions and just listen. You don't want to ask forceful questions like, what can I do to get rid of you? But you can observe things like, oh, you look young to me, or oh, this feels pretty big. Or you can ask gentle questions like, what do you want me to see or know? Or when did this start? How long has it been here? Where did this start? And just see what happens. Be open. Be curious. I'd also encourage you to be by yourself, not driving or doing anything that requires outward attention. You would want to be settled somewhere. You could be walking mindfully outdoors. You don't want to be in a crowded place. You could also light a candle, darken the room, and put on meditation music, particularly any meditation music that is for the delta waves of your brain. And you can search for that by typing in delta wave in your music app or on YouTube. This helps you move into the meditative state and activate the inner world. And be aware that as you want to befriend what's in your body, it's the feeling as if you and your body are on the same team, and you want to understand and learn from it and accept what it has to say, even if pieces of it might be a little bit difficult to hear. Right now, wherever you are, take a few moments to settle yourself. Settle your mind. Let your awareness come to this moment, to this place, and allow your body to settle, taking any small movements, anything that allows it to feel comfortable and anchored. You may begin to notice your breath coming in and out of your body. And just like our physical symptoms, we don't need to force our breath. Just allow it to naturally do what it does. Come in, come out, support you in life. And notice again the feeling of your body, of your back, bottom, legs, feet, torso against the furniture, the floor, or the earth. Feel the support of these things holding you as you begin to take this journey. Then, as you continue taking these easy, natural breaths, allow your awareness to drop further into your body. Check in with your body all over. Noticing any spots that seem to be holding tension or calling your attention. You could also allow your attention to go right to the part that has the most pain, the part you have already been wanting to explore. And then just begin to notice the feeling that is in that part, the kind of tension that is sitting there. And then just sit with what you notice. Ah, my shoulder is tight. Interesting. Allow yourself to keep breathing And also see if you can kind of direct the oxygen that you're breathing and point it to that area. In your mind, tell the area that you're with it and see if the sensation that's there wants to expand. Maybe it's pain. Maybe it's frustration. So it might be a physical sensation or a feeling that is there. And so keep breathing. If it's a physical sensation, notice the quality of the sensation. Is it a pressure? A pinching? Tightness? Squeezing? Stabbing? Just notice. Pinprick sensation, just notice. Keep letting oxygen go to that spot. Keep breathing. What does that sensation remind you of? Something else in your life that has the same feeling to it, the same stabbing or tightness or pressure. And if what you feel is not a physical sensation, but an emotion, let the feeling expand as you sit there with it. Maybe you know what the feeling is, or you're just noticing that it's there. So maybe notice how big the feeling is. If it's heavy or light, how much space does it take up? Has it been there for a long time? Does it remind you of something? Another time you felt this, something that happened recently. And notice you don't have to do this with your thinking mind. You are feeling your way into this feeling. You could even ask what you feel, see, or sense if it wants to become an image. Or an immediate memory from something that happened a couple days ago or 20 years ago. Instead of asking it to become an image, you may have something that you want to ask it or do with it. Remember, the things we go through in our body, the things we live through that don't get to express themselves, come up again. So just breathe in, just naturally allow yourself to get comfortable with whatever you're sensing, whatever's coming up. No judgment. It's just information, and it can feel a little bit weird to us if we're not used to doing it. So just notice whatever you are noticing is normal, is okay. You are doing this just right. So, whatever you're feeling and noticing at the moment, you could ask it if it wants to share something with you. Does it want to tell you about something that has been hard? Does it want you to see and feel some of its pain? Does it want you to truly know what you've been going through? The thing you haven't been able to tell people, the internal lived experience of such difficulty that has never been able to get out of your body. Can you feel that? Can you accept that? Can you honor what your body has been going through? Can you feel along with it? Just let yourself feel. Remember to breathe. Your breath will help the feeling move and release. If you heard or saw or felt a message, sit with the message. Does it feel true? Even if your thinking mind has some difficulty with it, does it feel like the truth? Or do you need to ask that image, that feeling, that sensation, that message a few more questions? Does it need to take you back to another time to honor something that happened? Is the truth hard to accept? You don't have to go further today if this is enough for you. Just allow yourself to sit with that knowing or memory or realization, allowing the feeling of it to expand in your body. You can ask, what is the one thing I need to know for today? Perhaps this is something you've already been working with. Some memories have already been surfacing, some emotions have been close to the surface, and you've already recognized them. And so you can take it a step further and ask, how can I work with this message? What do I need to know that would help me go deeper or incorporate this into my life? How can I shift this pattern? And watch what other pieces of insight come to you. Note that you can replay this guided inner journey over and over on different days. And the images and feelings and sensations that come up will shift over time, will give you more and more insight so that you can put the pieces of a puzzle together and begin to heal whatever is at the root of the physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual pain in your life. It is important, once you have done a journey like this, to somehow make note of it, whether you write or speak it into a notes app or draw a picture. Record some of the feelings or images, and especially the wisdom or insight or memory that came to you, the pattern you may have noticed that caused the pain. Because over time, your insight will deepen. And it will do this especially if you take time to work with the insights you have already been given. And so, for whatever came up for you today, your work forevermore is to believe the insight you were given. Go back and ask for more wisdom whenever you need to, and allow that insight to become real in your life by acting on it and making decisions that honor it. Maybe you've become aware of a need that wanted to be recognized, and you have to tell someone else about it and ask for the need to be met. Maybe a boundary needs to be established. Maybe there's another action, a job to quit, something that needs to be delegated or sorted through or cleaned up, or something to release from your life. Maybe it's to admit something you've never told anyone about and no longer carry the shame of it inside you. Maybe the knowledge that came is just for you, for your relief, for your ease, for your joy, a knowledge that validates something you've known inside but has never, ever been validated by anyone outside of you. And now your own body has told you it is true, and you can believe yourself and not carry the weight of being alone and silenced and minimized, because what happened did affect you, and you get to honor that truth. Whatever you are given, trust it. You are not speaking modern, analytical, verbal productivity language. You are conversing with your sacred self, and it wants to share with you what it has really been feeling. Trust and see what could change. The guided immersive journey you have just experienced is my heart work. This is what I do with people and what I want to do, because it brings us back to ourselves, back to our inner guidance and trust of the navigation system that's already within us. And so I would be so honored if you have taken this journey, if you would put in the comments something that it brought up for you, or if it's private and you don't need it on the internet, you are free to send me a message at Sacred Self Guide on Facebook or Instagram. And I would be so honored to hear what inner knowledge came to you. I would also be happy to answer any questions you have. And if this is something you are interested in doing in depth, I have a special offer right now of a $25 trial session where we do some talking about what's coming up for you. We do a little bit of education for your thinking mind so that it feels comfortable with the process. And when I do these immersive inner journeys in person or individually, they're less narrated and more simply guided. So you would go on your own inner immersion process and I would help you get started, but then your body would begin to speak to you and you would let me know what's happening as your journey continues. And I would simply help you to stay in that healing process so that you don't get stuck or confused or encounter something that you don't know what to do with. That's what my presence is here for. But our bodies know how to do this on our own. We have been born with this intuitive ability to speak to our inner selves. We have only forgotten how to do it. So if you're interested in going further, please do follow the link in the comments for the $25 Sacred Self Explore session. And let's see what possibilities could exist for you if you go deeper into your inner world. And I'll see you next week when we go a little deeper again.